Scientists have estimated that in the late 19th century, passenger pigeons were the most populous bird species ever on the planet. Billions of passenger pigeons once flew over North America. There were so many of them that historic records state that they flocked together in huge clouds of birds and blocked out the daytime sky for hours. This population went from billions to zero in just 50 years. Passenger pigeon was hunted to extinction. There were many causes. People had survived the winter by eating whatever food they had been able to preserve from the year before. Then the birds appeared in spring, fresh meat, though harvesting for food wasn't the main cause for the birds' extinction. After the Civil War came two technological developments that set in motion the pigeon's extinction: the expansions of the telegraph and the railroad. They enabled a commercial pigeon industry to blossom. Wisconsin's Kilburn City Mirror in 1971 reported, "Hardly a train arrives that does not bring hunters or trappers. Hotels are full, coppers are busy making barrels, and men, women, and children are active in packing the birds or filling the barrels." Birds were hunted viciously by both professionals and amateurs. The pigeon's survival strategy, flying in huge predator-proof flocks, caused them to be hunted easier. This was their undoing. There was no effort to save the birds. They were killed until the very end. By the mid-1890s, wild flock sizes numbered in the dozens rather than the hundreds or millions, or even billions. The last known passenger pigeon, a female named Martha, died at the Cincinnati Zoo on September 1, 1914. She never laid a fertile egg. Extinction was part of the motivation for the start of the modern 20th century conservation. In 1900, before Martha's death in the Cincinnati Zoo, Republican Congressman John F. Lancey of Iowa introduced the nation's first wildlife protection law, which banned the interstate shipping of unlawfully killed game. The wild pigeon, formerly in flocks of millions, has entirely disappeared from the face of the earth, Lacey said on the House floor. "We have given an awful exhibition of slaughter and destruction, which may serve as a warning to all mankind. Let us now give an example of wise conservation of what remains of the gifts of nature." That year, Congress passed the Lacey Act, followed by the stricter Weeks-McLean Act in 1913, and 5 years later the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, which protected not just birds but also their eggs, nests, and feathers. The loss of the passenger pigeon was a wake-up call. Influential people like President Roosevelt were instrumental in creating many of the national parks we know today. Due to the impact that came from the extinction of the passenger pigeon, immediate action was taken in the conservation of other species. The effort inspired by the extinction is a plan to bring the passenger pigeon back to life. Revive and Restore, a project that plans to use molecular biology to resurrect extinct animals, hopes to start with the band-tailed pigeon, a close relative to the passenger pigeon, and change its genome into the closest thing to the genetic code of a passenger pigeon that can be made. Revive and Restore plans to breed the animals in captivity before returning them to the wild in the 2030s. Other experts aren't optimistic. They question whether the hybrid animal could really be called a passenger pigeon. They doubt the birds could survive without the enormous flocks of the 19th century, and they question the belief that the forest could safely absorb their reintroduction, fearing that their reintroduction could be disruptive to the equilibrium.